Hello, it's Lion here with Hobbies and Man once again, and today we're going to be doing another original English light novel review. Today we're going to be looking at I Brought Our World's Magic number 2, an original English light novel by C.A. McDivitt. And yeah, this is the book. It's I think it's self-published through Amazon, so these are printed on demand whenever you order one. And this was given to me directly by the author. He's a friend of mine, and he sent me these to review. I'm not sure if he'll send me the next one, but I do hope he does. Now, the author is C.A. McDivitt, like I said, and there's the whole cover. It's self-published, like I mentioned, and the demographic here, my best guess is teen plus, YA, kind of standard shonen fare. If you're interested in comparing it to more traditional Japanese media, it is more or less a pretty safer work shonen kind of isekai type thing. So there you go. In terms of genres here, it's mostly isekai, fantasy, and there's elements of like sci-fi, but it's sci-fi in the Dr. Stone sense. Like, it's not actually science fiction as in future technology. It's more like science fiction as in science used in fictitious ways, right? Or in a fantasy setting, if that makes sense. It's kind of a weird distinction, but it is a meaningful one in this case. So yeah, it does not have an adaptation, obviously, although this would be pretty fun to see in a comic book, kind of way. But I do know that a lot of self-published authors that have tried to make their own kind of manga adaptations of their own works have not really been successful, at least from the limited amount of authors that I've seen do this. It doesn't really seem like it's a successful endeavor, so it's not necessarily likely, but it would be pretty cool to see it at some point. And I'm going to keep in line with the other way that I did the review last time. If I remember correctly, I didn't do it in my standard style. I kind of just jumped all over the place in order to give you more of a holistic look instead of a section partition kind of look, because I think that benefits these types of stories a little bit more than a established, traditionally published kind of work, right? So, ratings wise, it's a 4 out of 5. I actually really enjoyed this one. It's kind of interesting because C.A. McDivitt himself told me that this is not necessarily his best work, but I found it a little bit more enjoyable than the first one. Now, I do have a reason for this. I think it has mostly to do with the fact that this doesn't have to bother with setting up a world, and so everything that happens is enjoyable character interactions and or plot line kind of things, right? So it managed to get out of the bog down that is the initial isekai premise, and then allowed it to flourish a little bit more. It's not necessarily my most favorite 4 out of 5 ever. Like, out of all the books that I've rated 4 out of 5, this is not necessarily my favorite book in that kind of level, but it is one that I enjoyed. I read really fast, and I had a pretty good time with. So the premise of this part of the story is that the battle has been won, continuing on from last time, and now they need to take news to the king about, what's happening here, about the Leiden Empire and the Oni ships and what's happening, right? And so Alex and the two girls, Becca and Jesse, end up sidetracked while they're trying to travel to this other place to tell this king, and end up in the Black Forest, and so encounter wood elves or black elves. I don't remember exactly what the terminology was here, but it is, of course, woodland kind of elves, and they're not necessarily the, like, Aryan stand-in Tolkien ones. It's more like the Drow kind of type of elves, if that makes sense. A little bit of that, not necessarily like an evil race or anything like that, but they're much more antagonistic. And they end up interacting with them, and they have to have another fight with an Oni ship. And that's actually where my one complaint about the story comes. It's that, how do I explain this? Generally speaking, light novels function around a single major event, right? Of course, this major event is not necessarily the only major event in an arc, but it is usually that this is the one thing that the story revolves around into, and then connects to the other part that connects to the other part that makes the whole story arc, right? In this case, I think the major point about this story was supposed to be get to the king's palace. I don't remember if they actually managed to achieve that. I'm pretty sure they stayed in the forest by the end of the book. And so the premise that was established as the final point of the story, or of this part of the story, wasn't even reached by the end of this book. And so I don't necessarily like that. However, that's possibly, or probably most likely, an issue with me reading the book and understanding that to be the main point of this novel, and it not actually being the case. Because sometimes there is a little bit of miscommunication between an author and a reader, and if you don't catch on to what is being told to you, you might have situations like the one I described, right? So it is possible that the main point of this novel was not actually what I thought it was, and so my complaint falls to the wayside because it's not actually what the point of the novel is. However, I do think it was presented as such. The point of this part of the story of this novel was to get from the place they're in, the Duke's place, and get to the King's place. However, they took a massive detour to the Black Forest and stayed in the Black Forest by the end of the book. They did end up in a more advantageous position than before, but generally speaking, the start of the novel and the end of the novel is basically the same point in the timeline, right? So, or in the action lines. So I do feel that it is a negative in that sense. Basically, it's like there's a map of things, right? And you go from one point to the other. And in this one, they went to another point, but it's kind of like a loop. And so it stays in the same area that it started in. So basically it spun its wheels a little bit, and I feel that that was a negative. However, it is probably the only real negative that there is. Everything else in this story was good, and I quite enjoyed it. So yeah, I can't really think of anything else to say in terms of the plot line or the premise. There really isn't too much happening here, but what does happen is fun and interesting. Mostly, I enjoyed a lot of the character interactions. We get introduced to two important characters here. We get Sasa, or Sasea. I don't know. They do mention that she sounds like Shish. So I guess she would be Shishe or something like that. And she is a wood elf. She has orange skin. I think they have black hair. And they're fairly indistinguishable from their male counterparts in their species. However, she is clearly a female character, and she has, kind of an interest in Alex, because at the end of the day, this is a light novel. This is a harem kind of vague series. So of course, Alex is going to find a girl of each type to kind of collect, right? So yeah, however, we do get introduced to a positive male character, which is not that common in light novels, in Geralt, who is a blacksmith, and a few other things. I think he's also able to knit, and he's also able to leather work and a bunch of other stuff. And of course, he's going to end up being Alex's sidekick for the foreseeable future, and it'll probably be really, really good. It's going to be comparable to Senku and Chrome, or Senku and Taiju, or whatever else you might want to, kind of pull up from Dr. Stone. It's going to be a main character with modern scientific knowledge, and a secondary character that wants to learn this knowledge or has skills that are necessary to implement it in a way that the main character is not able to, right? So I do really like this character, Geralt. I think he's a very interesting future ally, and I enjoy the interactions he has with Alex because they have a little bit of a bro moment, and I liked it. So yeah, in terms of world building, when we get introduced to these elves, we understand a little bit more about magic and a little bit more of like a linguistic thing. There's something called elf-mindedness, which is basically an inability to deal with this like mental magic, which is kind of odd because it seems to be that the elves actually have better mental magic than humans. And so that's kind of fun. And we also get a little bit more development into the Kogan Oni stuff. And in this case, it is clear that the Oni ships and the Estelid Empire and stuff like that are getting things from someone else that also traveled from our modern world into this fantasy one. So I like that because it clears it up. I do still think that it was not very clear in the first novel, but again, sometimes readers don't understand what the authors are telling them. And in the case of self-published authors, that's also probably something that they can develop with some time and some better editing, which maybe is or is not possible to get as a self-published author, right? So yeah, fan service wise, there really isn't much. There's like a scene or two, or maybe it's not even fan service. It's more like flirty situations. Nothing adult or anything like that, but there's elements of that here and there. And like I said, ratings wise is a 4 out of 5. It's good. It's enjoyable. I liked it better than the first one, but it is by no means like a perfect story. I did like it for what it was. Overall, I did enjoy myself, which is why I gave it a 4 out of 5, but it is not necessarily like Brandon Sanderson level. So there you go. I know I'm comparing to like one of the greats, but you know, it's just a hyperbole to demonstrate what I'm talking about. So yeah, overall, Our World's Magic #2 was a success. I liked it. I definitely enjoyed it, and I can't wait to read more of it. So there you go. Very fun stuff. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please leave a like, subscribe, and comment down below. Let me know what you thought. And thank you guys very much for watching. Also, be aware, CM Exhibit might comment down below, so feel free to talk to him in the comments if you guys like. And I'm sure he'll answer you guys as well. So yeah, see you guys in the next video.